Right now, we have the Sunday Spotlight, shining this week on George Saunders. Short story collections almost never crack the bestseller list, but Saunders has done it with his new book, 10th of December. The New York Times hailed him as the writer for our time in a buzzy feature, saying he wrote the best book you'll read this year. It is the best fiction I've read this year, so it's a real pleasure to welcome you to this week. And boy, you must be loving all of this attention.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I might have gotten a little bit, neurotic, but now I'm just having a great time.
Well, and you've earned it, and the book really is remarkable. It's so rich in so many ways, funny and dark, realistic and absurd at the same time. But what I want to focus on for just these few minutes is that, something that we talk about all the time here on This Week. You really seem to tap into this economic anxiety that so many Americans are feeling right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like that's the big American subject that we can't, you can talk about race, you can talk about sex, you can talk about your biopsy, but when you get into class, people kind of clench up. And I had, in my 20s, I had a series of that kind of classic American experience where you are kind of going down and you think, that's enough, now I'm going to turn myself around, and then you go down a little more. So I think that kind of had a tenderizing effect and kind of... You
say when you started that, in that experience, you were an Ayn Rand guy, you said.
I very much was. I went to the School of Mines in Colorado, and kind of a dull-witted, sort of vaguely right-wing kind of person who didn't really know much about politics. And then I went to Asia in the oil business, and that really opened up my eyes to suffering and to the fact that wealth doesn't necessarily indicate that you are virtuous. It just sort of an element of luck and so on.
And one of the things you write about, I think the phrases you've said is the absence of wealth creates an erosion of grace.
Right. Or as Terry Eagleton put it, capitalism plunders the sensuality of the body, So fiction isn't actually a great propaganda tool. Often the first impulse of a writer is kind of to pull up the big manure truck of his ideas and his politics and just sort of stand there, reader, and dump it. But I find that if you just concentrate on language and on making sort of lively human situations, then ideas and sort of, they come out of the woods.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. So if you set out to write overtly political fiction, it wouldn't work.
It never does, and I've tried, and it doesn't work. There's something about the intimacy of the exchange demands openness on both sides. And on the writer's part, openness means I really don't know. I might think I know, but I don't. And it's weird because the way to get to those ideas is through the language, paying close attention to phrases and sentences. And if you do that in kind of an open state, not only will the ideas show up, but they'll be the highest form of your ideas. They won't be propagandistic, they won't be superficial, but they'll be deep and sort of ambiguous. It
also seems like one of the things you're trying to create space for in those sentences is space for heart. Yes. And that's another way of reaching across our divides.
That's right. I love that Longfellow quote, which I'll probably mangle, but it said, if we could look into the secret histories of our enemies, we would find sufficient suffering and sorrow to disarm our hostility. And I think fiction is kind of almost like a mechanical way to work through your own shallowness. You start off with a kind of a condescending relationship to your character, almost by definition. And as you work with the sentences, you find that the bad sentences are equal to simplicity or condescension. And as you work with language, you move yourself towards complexity and often to a state of confusion where you really don't quite know what you think about the person.
You may not, but when you send it out into the world, what do you hope to get back?
I think the highest version is you're sending out a bundle of energy, concentrated energy that you've made with your own sweat, really, and your heart. And it goes out and it jangles somebody. That's the highest form. Now, there's another level where you do hope to make people more alive in the world, maybe more aware of the fact that we have more in common with others than we think we do. That's kind of a hope, but even that gets a little bit intentional. So for me, it's just trying to deliver an energy charge in a certain way.
Well, you did it for me, and you've done it for so many more. The book is called 10th of December. Thank you very much, George Saunders. If you'd like to read an excerpt of it, go to our website at abcnews.com/thisweek. And now we have some good news. As you know, this is the place in our program where we honor the sacrifices of our service members killed in action. But for the second week in a row, the Pentagon released no names of soldiers killed in Afghanistan. That is all for us today. Thanks for sharing part of your Sunday with us. Check out World News with David Muir tonight, and join us Tuesday night when Diane Sawyer and I will anchor complete coverage of the State of the Union starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you tomorrow on GMA.